Welcome to 9 Point Started With a Dream podcast. Our goal is to showcase the stories of athletes and the community that supports them by being authentic about their journey. Here's your host, Jacoby Gillum.
Hey, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, as always, Jacoby Gillum. If this is your first time tuning in, this is the 9 Point Started With a Dream podcast. And this thing started about 3 or 4 years ago with the aspiration to kind of help share the stories in sports that we don't always get to hear. The story of the underdog, the stories that can inspire us to go out and achieve our dream as well. And today's guest is Charlotte Harris, and she has a journey that, is about ambition. It's about pursuing your passion at all costs. And you're going to hear her story about how she went from being a player to a coach to owning her own agency and how she's now using that agency to help impact other volleyball players around the world and kind of help them achieve their dream and live their life to the fullest. So great journey here. You're going to love Charlotte's story, and let's get to it. So Charlotte, the question I ask everyone that comes on is, when you're younger as an athlete, what was like your big dream and goal you wanted to achieve?
Yeah. So my biggest thing was I wanted to play Division I college volleyball. And I mean, when I started playing volleyball when I was younger, I knew pretty much from the start that was the goal.
So with that goal, right, and college volleyball, it's like only select you get to make it. How did you start realizing that, hey, this is possible, or how can I achieve that goal?
Yeah. So from a young age, I was going to a lot of the University of North Carolina Chapel Hill games. I'm from Chapel Hill, North Carolina. So I grew up seeing, these elite Division I athletes and really wanting to be like them. Obviously, when I was 12 years old, I wasn't anything like them, but I was, one of the better players in the area that I grew up in. And that was, of course, gave me a lot of confidence. And what I ended up doing was trying out for like the state high performance team, where I met Kathleen, who you interviewed a couple of weeks ago. And I think what I remember from that experience was, I went there and was not the best one in the gym anymore. I was competing against girls from all over North Carolina, and there were some really talented players there. And I had not experienced the level of coaching that a lot of these players had, but I was one of the most passionate in the gym for sure. And I wanted to play volleyball and work hard and be there. And the coaches noticed that. And what happened was they had like a tryout camp where you were there. And I think at that point you had to be selected to be in the tryout camp. And so that camp was like a week. And at the end of the camp, they chose 12 players to play on the team to travel to Texas and compete in the state high performance tournament. So you're competing under USA Volleyball's name against all the other states. And the coaches pulled me over in the last day and they were like, Charlotte, look, here's the deal. We see so much potential in you and we can't bring you on right now as one of the 12. But we'd like to offer you a spot as number 13 as an alternate. And if anybody gets injured, if somebody's sick and can't come, then you'll play. But regardless, you're going to get to come to the next training camp with us, and you'll get to travel to the tournament and you'll get to have that experience. And I think that a lot of people that got that opportunity said no. And I said, yes. I was like, great, awesome. I get to keep being in a high level gym with good players. And yeah, I don't get to play in the tournament, but that's okay. And by the time we got from, I think the first trial was like in May, and then the camp right before the tournament was in July. And by the time we got to July, I had made a ton of improvements, had really listened to everything that they said. So the first day when we went to the tournament, I started. And I wasn't supposed to start. I wasn't even supposed to be dressed out. The only reason why I was dressed out that day is because one of the other players was with USA Volleyball and she was coming in the next day. So I started, and one of the other outside hitters' parents who was there threw a fit because he's like, my daughter didn't sign up to be an alternate. This girl did. So why is she on the court and my daughter's on the bench? And that meant that I didn't get to play the rest of the tournament because he threw a fit. But I did walk away from that experience with a lot more confidence and seeing like where I could go if I got better coaching and if I, committed and took the time to play at a higher level.
Just imagine if you had said no.
I know.
Things may have changed for you, this whole journey maybe.
Yeah, for sure. And that it's interesting because like that was not a big thing, that wasn't a year-long experience or anything like that, but it made such a big impact because it gave me the chance to be exposed to volleyball at a higher level and see I'm not there yet, but this is where I want to go. And this is what I need to do to get there.
So you have this, so now you're going back home to North Carolina, and so you still have this dream, like I want to be a Division I athlete. You kind of have a new, guess what, mindset, maybe like a bigger frame. So how did you think that now that I'm kind of in this state, how can I make it happen? Did it kind of go more club teams, was it more high school teams, or what?
Yeah. So before that, I had been playing for kind of my local club, which was more people that wanted to play volleyball because they thought it was fun and they were committed to it, but not really serious about it. And at that point, the coach from the high performance team, Jenna, she's awesome. She's supported me in many stages of life, but she actually was going to coach at Triangle Volleyball Club, which was a really competitive national travel team. And she was like, look, you need to come to tryouts. You need to come play for me. And so I ended up doing that. And I played for Triangle until I went to college. And that really set me up for playing Division I volleyball.
Was there ever a moment that you felt that like the dream wasn't going to happen?
Yes. There were many, I was later to the game. So I developed more, I guess, physically than some girls. Well, not really, but, I was pretty tall by the time I was like 16. And then I stopped, I'm 5'9", 5'10". So when I was 16, I was getting looks from some big schools and was really excited about it. And then I didn't keep growing and I didn't, really start jumping a lot higher or anything like that. So those schools started to fill their positions and I wasn't getting offers. And I remember my high school coach sat me down and she's like, look, Charlotte, I know that like your big goal is to play Division I volleyball, but maybe we need to be a little bit more realistic here because you are, 5'9", 5'10" outside hitter, and there aren't that many girls of that size really, playing Division I. Maybe it would be better for you to look at some Division II schools or some other opportunities. And it's funny now because I think about that talk and I can remember it. Like I remember sitting in that gym talking to her and everything that she said went in one ear and out the other. And as much as that might be a bad thing, she had very valid points in a lot of ways. I'm so happy that it did because I knew it was possible and I knew that that was my goal and that's what I wanted to make happen. And if I needed to make some other sacrifices, and then I was willing to do that in terms of maybe like scholarship or position or different things like that. But I wasn't going to accept not playing Division I because I wanted to compete at the highest level that I could. And I wanted to be challenging myself.
And I guess kind of going back to this dream, what about this dream just kind of had this like desire in you that like, I have to be a Division I volleyball player? Like, what about that dream?
Yeah, I think a lot of it just goes back to growing up in Chapel Hill and like everything about the whole community, the whole world is about the athletics at the university. And I grew up watching those girls and wanting to, play at that level. And now knowing what I know now, I mean, there's great opportunities for athletes across all divisions. And I'm sure I could have gone to a Division II school and had a great experience. But for me, that goal was just so definitive. And I was ready to get after it and reach that goal.
So I guess $1 million question, and did the goal become reality?
Yes, it did. It did. I played at Mercer University, which is a Division I school in Georgia.
Okay. So I went from North Carolina to Georgia. So how is that freshman year, going from, I guess you now achieve the ultimate dream that you had as a kid. Now it's like, what's next?
Yeah. I mean, I think anytime I was playing volleyball, I wanted to be on the court. So that was the thing. Like now I've gotten there. And I mean, for anybody that's going from their high school team to their college team, you're probably one of the better players where you're coming from if you've made it to the college level. And then you get there and, everybody's pretty good. So my freshman year, it was all about trying to figure out like, how am I going to get on the court? And at that time I was competing for an outside hitter position with two freshmen. There was a senior who had she was going to start no matter what. And then I was competing with 2 freshmen, and we could not be more different. Like, I was by far the best serve receive passer. The other outside was by far the best defender. And the other outside was by far the best attacker. So our coach would joke, like, why can't I just put you guys all into one and just have all 3 of you in one? Because that would make her job a lot easier. We definitely made her job harder. But the best defender, she ended up earning her starting spot. She was a little bit better all around than me and the other outside. So then it became like, well, how do I make myself a role on this team? If that traditional outside hitter role that I am used to playing and that I thought I was coming here for is not available to me, like this other girl, she's beat me out fair and square. So what can I do to contribute to the team? And for me, that was passing and serve receive. And I ended up kind of earning a spot as what we call like a defensive specialist in volleyball, playing back row for one of the outside hitters. And I was just happy to be on the court. I wanted to play.
Yeah. So I guess in those 4 years of college, was there like a game that you just felt like this was like your moment, like your game?
I guess one of the games that's probably my favorite memory is my junior year. I ended up switching to the libero position and playing that position my sophomore, junior, senior year. And for those that don't know volleyball or just learning about volleyball, that means that I played in a different colored jersey, and I was playing in the back row only. So my main job was to serve, receive, and defense. So in my junior season, I had a great season. I was playing the best volleyball of my career, and I ended up in like 3/4 way through the season. I think I was number 2 in the record books for digs per set, or digs in a season. So I remember that game and getting that dig that put me over the edge. And I remember my coach looking at me and being like, "You're in the record books now," and that was a pretty cool memory.
That's awesome. So I guess, how has it been like with your family? Like, were they like a game sometimes? They kind of able to fly down, or they kind of very supportive through your whole athletic journey?
For sure. And I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but club volleyball and I think all youth sports now in the US are insanely expensive. So the commitment that families have to make and the sacrifices that they have to make in order to get a player to college is pretty huge. And that was a big thing that I definitely recognize, is that my parents sacrificed a lot to even get me there. And then while I was there, I think that my dad came to a lot of games and was there pretty frequently. And my mom came sometimes, but it was a little bit farther drive for her, so she wasn't there as much. But they've always been a great support system. It
kind of helps too, right? Kind of being, far from home, to have familiar faces sometime in the stands.
For sure. And I think, honestly, the best way that my parents always supported me during my volleyball career was by always listening when things didn't go my way or I was upset about something, but always challenging me a little bit too. They were never the parents that would, I've said, I wanted to be on the court, and when I wasn't on the court, I was pissed. And my parents would tell me, like, you need to suck it up. You need to have a good attitude and be a good teammate. And they were right. But at the time, that was the last thing I want to hear. And as a coach, I've had that same situation with players. And oftentimes their parents are telling them, "Oh, you're right. You should be on the court." Like, "Oh, da, da, da." And it actually doesn't really serve the player, because it doesn't, make them work hard for anything. It makes them think that they just deserve to be there just because. And my parents always kind of challenged me in that way and made sure that my strong will was kind of checked sometimes.
Yeah. Ego can get big if we just always getting fed the stuff that we want to hear.
Exactly. And the drive can get low too, I think, because it's really easy to give up on something when you think all of a sudden that, that you're being wronged and that it's not fair what's happening to you, instead of looking at it as like, what can I do better? Or how can I work harder? How can I contribute to my team in other ways if I'm not on the court? And that's an important perspective to have.
Yeah, it kind of served you well then. By junior year, right, you said you were in a new position. So you kind of found a way, like, how can I find my role on this team? How can I be, a contributor?
Exactly. And that's what really became evident, like, for me in college, was that in my freshman year, I realized I am a bit undersized for an outside hitter at this level. And yeah, I can work harder and start jumping higher and everything like that. But like, what am I really good at and where can I contribute to the team the most? And that was in passing and defense. And taking on the libero role, I wasn't a traditional kind of libero, but it was absolutely the best move for me. And I'm happy that I was kind of took it with open arms, because a lot of times, it can be hard. It can be a hard reality to face when you've thought of yourself in one way and one role for so long, and then you're asked to switch to something else.
Definitely. So for me, in my athletic journey, I dealt with like things that happened, right? There was injuries, there was mental health, they were getting cut, So for you, were there any moments that it just was not going right, or just you felt like, man, this is tougher than I thought it would be, or just a setback?
For sure. My junior year, like I said, I had a really good season and was defensive player of the year in my conference, and, really thought going into my senior year that our whole team was just going to have a blowout year, but instead in the winter of my junior year, I blew out my ACL. So that really changed things. I had worked the spring before, in my sophomore spring and my freshman spring. They have rules like in the NCAA about how many hours you can train, but you're allowed to ask the coaches to train extra. So I was always asking my coach, like, let me get in the gym, let me get extra reps. And the springtime was really my time to work on fine tune my skills, because I was able to just get a lot of individual training because I was always asking for it. And then when I was in the winter of my junior year, I tore my ACL. So that whole spring, I wasn't able to play volleyball at all. I was, recovering and learning, being able to walk and jump and everything like that, and try to get ready for August. And when that time came, my mind and my body were in two different places. So that was really that was a hard reality to kind of face, and a hard pill to swallow when I wanted my body to be performing at the level it was a year before, and it just wasn't there yet.
So you went from the record books to an ACL injury.
I did. It was rough. I think I still finished I did finish second in my conference in digs per set though. So, but I wasn't nearly where I wanted to be. And I think also the mental toll that it takes on you is almost worse than the physical. Like physically, I probably could have been performing a lot better if I had gotten the fear out of my head of getting re-injured again. And so I was, slower than I was second guessing myself. I was taking up kind of less space on the court because I was scared. And that was probably an even bigger hurdle than where I was at physically.
And when you say you were scared, was it like you were scared of like just jumping again, or like was it like diving on the floor again? Like what was like your biggest fear when it came to the re-injury?
I think I was scared of getting re-injured. And also I think I was just scared of underperforming. When you set your expectations so high, and when you want that things to go so well, and then they don't, and then you kind of feel it starting to slip away from you, and then you start trying to grab onto it even harder, when really what I've learned, maybe it's better to kind of redirect and find a different kind of goal or a different thing to focus on, so that you're not obsessing and not kind of going down a black hole.
So you said a thing a year to go too, right? You still had one more year left. So how did you kind of find a way to kind of reframe your mindset, or how to overcome, that fear, so you can at least have that senior year that every athlete wants?
Yeah. So this was all in my senior year. It was my junior year that I had a good year. And then I tore my ACL in the winter of my junior year. So it was my last season that didn't go so well. And I actually remember our very last game, I finally was able to play freely, just let my mind go and just play. And I remember my coach, like after the game, she's like, "That's the best you played all season. Like, what was the difference?" And I was like, "Just wasn't thinking so much. Like, it's pretty much it."
You got out of your head a little bit.
Exactly.
So once, I guess, this last game happened, what was your thoughts on what's next? Was it just like, I'm gonna get a job and, go back home and start working?
I didn't have all the answers, and I don't think that I felt like I needed to right then. I knew that I wanted the chance to live abroad. I knew that I loved traveling and being overseas. I also knew that I loved volleyball. And I think my go-to thought was that I was going to coach college volleyball. And that's what I ended up doing for a little bit. First, I went overseas. I lived in London, and then I was coaching college volleyball in the US. And that was kind of the career path that I was going down when I was living in the US.
So why coaching? What about it made you want to go back to the sport that you love so much?
Yeah, I think that's a lot of what it's about. I love the sport. I also love interacting with people and giving back to athletes. And I love, I love helping people believe in themselves and really get to that next goal of theirs. And that's, the most fun part for me about coaching, no matter what level I was coaching at, I've coached at a lot of different levels, was always watching when you're with an athlete and, you're working on something and they don't get it. And then they finally do. And you see that they start to believe in themselves just a little bit more from getting that skill. And that is the most beautiful thing about sports in general to me, and a beautiful part of coaching as well.
So say there's an athlete right now that's like, say they aren't developing as quick as the people around them, right? What advice would you give them on how to just, stick with it, or like how to just, keep pursuing the dream?
Yeah. I mean, one thing that is going to always hold you back is comparing yourself to those around you. I mean, it's about getting a little bit better each day and challenging yourself within your own frame and within where you're at. And I think for those athletes that are really successful, or where I found success, was when I stopped trying to be better than someone else. And when I started looking at what am I good at and how can I develop those skills? And that's goes for anything in life too. I mean, so often, especially with youth sports now, we want to give everybody a trophy and tell everybody that they did a good job and everybody's a winner, but not everybody's a winner, and not everybody is good at everything. And that's okay. You don't have to be good at everything. Find what you're good at, find what you're passionate about, and hone into that.
That was fire. That was good. I love that.
Trust me, my husband has heard me on that soapbox so many times about the youth sports. So
that's awesome. So the journey was known for you when it came to coaching. You kind of said, I want to do more. And so how did you played overseas, correct? So you made that journey overseas to play?
Yeah, so I was playing in Sweden, and my journey here was a little bit different because I met a guy at Mercer, and he was a Swedish guy who was playing soccer over there, who's now my husband. And we were doing long distance for a while in the US, or I was in the US and he was in Sweden while I was coaching, and kind of push came to shove. And it was like, look, this long distance thing has got to be over. And one of us has to make the move. And like I said, I've always wanted to live abroad and live overseas. So I moved to Sweden and started playing in the top league here.
So if we just pause the journey right now, right, and you look back at the young Charlotte in North Carolina that was wanting to go D1, and now she's across overseas now playing pro, what would you say to her?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I don't know what I would say to her. That's a good question. I would tell her, to keep going after, what kind of sets your heart on fire, and see where it leads you, because playing, volleyball in Sweden couldn't have been anywhere on my radar when I was a young player. But there are so many opportunities out there in volleyball that I know of, and there's so many opportunities out there in different sports. So just keep going after what you love and working hard, and good things will happen.
So you met your husband, y'all did the long distance thing, and you said, all right, I'm moving to Sweden. All right. So now that you're over in Sweden, how did you stay involved with the sport? You didn't get like a job in the agency? What kind of helped you kind of stay involved with volleyball?
So I was playing in Sweden, and I was also contacted by a sports agency that was looking for somebody to start a college program for them, helping international athletes to go to college in the US. And they knew that I had college coaching experience. So I kind of fit into the role perfectly. So I ended up starting with them, and I was under the impression that was the whole job. But when I sat down and met with the CEO for the first time, thinking that we were kind of talking about college, she's like, all right, so we're going to do this college thing, but that's not going to be like, that's not going to really keep you going. You're going to want to work with volleyball because obviously that's what you love and what you're passionate about. So you're going to be a professional volleyball agent. And I remember walking out of that meeting like, what? This was not at all what I thought it was, but they are a super, super dominant agency in women's football. And being there, I got to learn from some great female agents and he was also a great male agent, and be a part of deals with, some of the biggest clubs in the world, like Arsenal and Juventus and Manchester City, and get an inside look at how the negotiations and contract deals and all those sorts of inner workings of being an agent, how they work.
So you went from being an agent, and then you went from saying, I want my own agency. How did that transition inspire? Like what inspired that thought that maybe I can have my own agency?
Yeah. So this is going to sound bad, but in some ways, I would say I was so, from the time before I even moved to Sweden, when I was coaching college volleyball in the US, I sat down with one of my colleagues who was also a coach there, and she had been coaching for a lot longer than me and had a lot more experience. And she looked at me and she said, well, what are you going to do in Sweden? And I said, well, maybe I'll just start my own business and start my own agency. And at the time I was thinking for college, and I really had that idea in mind from even before I moved. And I had this belief that I could do it from the beginning without really understanding that actually starting your own business is pretty complicated. And there's a lot of different factors that go into it. And it takes a lot of sacrifice and work, and also just a lot of general pragmatic stuff that's not that exciting. But I had this belief that I could do it anyways. And then while I was working for the other agency, they were really big in women's football, and it was pretty obvious that they wanted to pour their resources, their time, everything into that. And it came to the point where I wanted to pour resources and time and invest more into volleyball and growing volleyball. I wanted to travel to see our clients and be able to, travel to more games and do all these things that I didn't have necessarily the full support of the owners at that agency to do. So I ended up buying the agency from them in 2019 and starting it as Athletes Abroad Management, or buying the volleyball agency and college program. They still have a good women's soccer agency. That's
a pretty dope journey right there. I want to buy the agency, and I want to start building my own thing. So was there anybody in your life that kind of gave you that kind of confidence, that inspired you that this is possible, something that I can do?
For sure. I would say there are many people in my life who inspired me and gave me that confidence, but one person that always gave me the sense of belief that I could run my own business was my grandmother. My grandmother, she grew up in a much different time than we live in today. She's 94 years old. And when she was graduating from high school, her father was a successful business owner, and she was under the impression, she had followed, the business, and was under the impression that was something that she could be a part of, and was really interested in being a part of it. And he told her, you're a woman, you will be a nurse or a teacher. Those are the only acceptable jobs for women: a nurse, a teacher, or a wife. And my grandmother didn't want to be a stay-at-home mom. She wanted to work. So she chose to be a teacher and did that for many years, and finally kind of realized that she was undervaluing herself in that role, that it wasn't necessarily the best place for her, and that she could start her own business. So she did start her own business, and it's still successfully running today. My mom actually runs it herself. So it's pretty cool to have them both as inspirations, as female entrepreneurs who are running their own business. My mom did it as a single mom raising two crazy kids. So they definitely showed me that it's possible.
And kind of segue into that, because you're the first American FIVB agent, right?
Female American. It's kind of complicated. Yeah, I think there's 3 of us that are American that are FIVB licensed. And there's only 9 females that are FIVB licensed out of 74 FIVB licensed agents. So there's not many of us.
So what does that mean to you when we kind of have that, I guess, that title, right? Like what mean you kind of be the first American woman? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, from the beginning, from when I first started as an agent, I knew I wanted to be FIVB licensed. There are agents working, there are good agents working who aren't FIVB licensed, but without being FIVB licensed, you don't have the same kind of protection for your clients that you do as an FIVB licensed agent. So that was always a goal of mine, and it takes there's some steps to it. And, they have to verify you and your agency, and there's a financial commitment and everything like that comes with it. So then there's a test and an interview and all that kind of stuff. So it takes some work to make it happen, but it was always a goal that I wanted to achieve. And now being able to do it, I think what it means for me is more about what it means for our clients. Being able to better serve them and protect them is always my top priority. So that is a huge part of pride for me with being an FIVB licensed agent.
And so you're using that kind of help athletes abroad. And so, there are a lot of agencies out there, right? Everyone, the agency, what makes athlete abroad the agency for, the athlete should look into or just, want to be a part of.
Yeah. I hope there's a lot of reasons. I would say that, we look at things in a different way. I think the traditional agent role is to find a contract, to find a job for a player. And that is, pretty much where they believe their work begins and ends. And for me, that's really where my work begins, but it's not at all where it ends. I want to be there to support the players every step of the way and really have a player first mentality and prioritizing them and their needs kind of above everything else. And that's been really important. And also just having strong personal relationships with all of our clients is what makes it fun. It wouldn't be fun for me to have, 200 clients who I don't really know who they are, who I'm just finding jobs for and filing through. And that's how some agencies work. And that works for them and that works for their clients. And that's great. But for me, that wouldn't fulfill me in the way that doing things the way that we are now does.
And does that kind of stimulate from kind of being a player yourself and kind of going through that, just, the whole journey as a kid and kind of seeing the dream now that kind of helps you kind of want to be that athlete first mentality?
For sure. And I think a part of it too is having the experience of living overseas and understanding how lonely it can be sometimes. Even if I was here with my husband, I'm far away from my family and friends, and he's got his whole life here already. So knowing that overseas experience and how challenging that can be and the challenges that come with that in addition to playing definitely gives me a lot of drive to help these athletes. You see right now there are a lot of Americans playing overseas because there's not really a long-standing league for it in the US. And so often you've seen players that play for one season or maybe 2 or just have these miserable experiences. And part of that, of course, is sometimes maybe it's not for them, or maybe they do get put into a bad situation. But I also think a lot of it is because they're not really prepared for what they're getting themselves into. And they're not really, them and their agents aren't really looking at what could be the best fit for them. They're looking more maybe at just the money or just the level or whatever it may be, instead of getting that whole picture.
And it's funny you say that because yesterday I interviewed Lauren Page.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Talk about how you two kind of connected and how you kind of helped her realize, like the team felt fit for her skill set and kind of fit with what she's looking for. So kind of proof in the pudding right there, how, Athlete Abroad operates.
Lauren Page is a great example of somebody who has, climbed the ladder in professional volleyball and worked really hard, and also kind of tried to look at the big picture. And she's a great human, and we're super, super happy to have her with Athletes Abroad.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've been a few athletes so far from Athlete Abroad. I feel like sometimes like 9-point plus Athlete Abroad, a little segment.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Our athletes have some really interesting stories, and we so appreciate you taking the time to share them, because professional volleyball is real, and it's really, really cool that these athletes are doing what they're doing. And so often they don't get to share their stories, or people don't really understand the level that they're playing at and the things that they're achieving, because they are so far away from home, because there isn't a pro league in the US. So I love that they're getting the chance to share on your podcast.
And they've been great, you know, from you to Kathleen to Maggie, you know, to Lauren, you know, so it's been really cool just to hear how you all connecting, you know, and it's a lot of North Carolina people.
It is. There's also, we have people from all over. We also have, you know, European national team athletes. And I think one thing that we really want to build with Athletes Abroad is a community, not just, I don't want people joining Athletes Abroad or you know, signing with us just because they want me to be their agent. Of course, I want them to want me to be their agent, but I also want them to have this community within Athletes Abroad and have, you know, these strong, powerful professional athletes that are supporting each other and helping each other, because that's so important when you are thousands of miles away from family and friends. And when you are going into these intense, high pressure situations, and knowing other athletes that are going through the same thing can mean the world in you being successful or not.
It's awesome that your agency is kind of building that within each other. So that way, say, you know, you're in France, you can go visit Kathleen while she's there, you know, you're playing in France, and you kind of have that bond you're building.
Exactly. And I think a lot of that too comes from Kathleen and I both. You know, Kathleen was a professional in France for 7 years and has ended up wanting to live there because she loves it so much. But that doesn't mean that there weren't struggles involved. And, you know, I'm still in Sweden because I do love it here. But at the same time, like, it was really hard in the beginning. And there's a lot of pain that can be avoided if you have somebody who's been through it before to kind of hold your hand and walk you through it. And for us, that's so important, because that's what's going to keep athletes playing longer. You know, that's what's going to keep them having better careers, being more fulfilled. That's what's going to keep clubs happier with them and their performance. And it's just going to be a win-win all around.
Yeah. So say we go back to, you know, Charlotte, the agent, right? And that journey, that story. So say there's, you know, a girl, say there was a girl back home, right? That thought, oh, I can be an agent. What advice would you tell her just about, you know, maybe how to approach it, or how to just look at that journey in itself?
Yeah. I would say in general, for anyone like wanting to be involved in their sport, like, just pursue your passion at all costs. Like, don't let just because your playing career is over, it doesn't mean that there's not opportunities for you still in your sport, whether that's coaching or reffing or, you know, being an agent or whatever it may be. But if you pursue your passion and you stay true to yourself, then you'll figure that out. And there are going to be some sacrifices that come along with it. I mean, people, especially when they think about agents, you know, you think, oh, we're running our own business and we're an agent and maybe we're doing all these great things, but there's a lot of sacrifices involved that you have to make that I had to make in order to get to where I am. So you have to be prepared to kind of make those sacrifices. But if you are pursuing what you love, then it'll be worth it in the end.
So running a business in itself is, you know, it can be its challenges, and then it's stuff like you just said. So what helps you keep going?
Our athletes, honestly, I wake up every day and I'm so excited for the chance to get to work. I love working with our athletes. I love seeing their journeys, like the signing of the contracts when we find the deals. Of course, that gives you some juice and gets you really excited. But it's so fun during the season, following their success. And, you know, even when bad things happen, when they pick up the phone and call me and tell me about it, like, that means the world to me. And that tells me that I'm doing something right, because they trusted me to reach out. And it also tells me, you know, hopefully we can make this better because you are talking about it and because we are trying to find solutions for this problem. So they really are why I love what I do. And they make it fun job every day. Maybe not. There are some times when there's some bad things that happen too, but overall, they make it a lot of fun.
So if we have the perfect world, right, and we look like a few years down the road, where do you hope to see Athletes Abroad continue to grow into or grow from?
Yeah, I mean, I think the goal for us, and I would assume that most agents would say this: we want to work with the top players in the top clubs in the world. But more important than that for me is really making sure that no matter where we go, we're always staying true to our vision and our values. It's really easy to do that in the beginning. You know, you set out these things that you're really passionate about and that you really want to make, and you have a few clients, and, you know, you're not working with so many clubs, and it's really easy to do that. But when you start to get more traction and everything, there are opportunities that come up, and it's really important to me that we always value our long-term success over any short-term gains, and just make sure that we're always putting the player first and staying true to that.
Love it. Love it. So your vision is you are like the athlete first of the agency.
Yes, that would definitely be a player first mentality has been a big thing for me from the beginning. And in terms of like our values, I think full transparency is so important. I mean, one of the reasons why I almost was a little bit like, ugh, when I even was, when the CEO of my former agency even brought the idea of being a professional volleyball agent to me, is because when you think of agents, you don't necessarily think of, people that are really honest and working with a lot of integrity. And that kind of turned me off for a little bit. But I realized like, that's not me. And that doesn't have to be like, I could be me in this role, you know? And for me, full transparency between the players and the clubs and myself will always be more important than, you know, making a few extra bucks or whatever it is. Because I think that's how we're going to be able to do the best for our athletes in the long run. And then also just passion for what you're doing, both from me, from our athletes. Like, I want athletes that are fired up and excited about this opportunity. I don't want people that I feel like I'm pulling their leg or having to walk them through, and really kick their butt to get them excited about it. Like, I want to work and be around people that are passionate about what they do.
Boom. Mic drop it.
I don't know about that.
No,
yeah, I mean, it gets me excited, and it's fun to talk about this stuff, because when you do set all of these things in the beginning, you don't always know how everything's going to play out. And now I feel like hopefully when you are talking to some of our athletes, that you're hearing a lot of these things like from them, not just from me, but that they know that this is how the agency is run, and that this is, you know, the support that we give them, and that they feel that.
And I think too, for me, when hearing your story and your journey so far, they're going to hear the passion, right? The passion that started when you were like 12 years old, and how that passion is just still running with you now to today. And I think that's like contagious, right? Like you want to be around someone that like loves what they're doing. And I think, you know, that's so props to you on that.
For sure. And I mean, I think I knew probably even when I was ending college, like I wasn't going to be in a traditional 9-to-5 office job. Like, that just wasn't for me. And if that meant that I needed to make some sacrifices, like one way or the other, I was willing to do that, because I wanted to be excited about what I did. And I wanted to wake up and feel that fire and like be ready to get to work. And I'm really fortunate to be able to do that.
Definitely. And I kind of go on that sacrifice thing. So sacrifices, right? How did you kind of just maybe like map out what were what were your willing to threshold like for this dream? Like how do you kind of map that out? If you don't mind me asking.
I don't think I did map it out. I think I kind of just took it as it came in a lot of ways. You know, it's like, okay, at first when we started, it's like, okay, can we survive this month? Like, are we going to be able to buy groceries? Like all that kind of stuff, because it takes a lot to run your own business, and to be able to get things going, it takes time. And I know my father-in-law has been a big support system as well. And he's been really successful in business for many years. And he's always said, like, it takes time. And even now he'll say, like, you have no idea where Athletes Abroad is going to go. Like, you are just getting started. Like 3 years is the time that we have been running as Athletes Abroad. And he's like, that's nothing. Like, I work with businesses all the time that, it's 10 years before they really get going. So just wait, just see where you're at in 10 years. And that gets me excited too. Just thinking about like, okay, he's seen this, he's been around the block a couple of times, and he's seen businesses develop and grow, and he sees the potential here.
Okay, so I'm put a calendar in my phone and say from 7 years from today to check in on Charlotte and see how.
Well, hopefully you'll still be interviewing our athletes,
I might be 1,000 in by then.
Yeah. Hopefully, hey, you'll be talking to some Champions League winners. Is hopefully what will be happening.
Maybe we'll do something in person. Then I'll fly overseas and we'll interview live.
That would be great. Love it.
Definitely. And then a few more questions for you, Charlotte. So where are you at? Where social media, websites, things that we can kind of mention for Athletes Abroad and you?
Yeah, so Athletes Abroad, you can follow us at athletesabroad.se. Follow us on Instagram. We have Facebook too. Instagram is always a fun tool as well. Personally, you can find me on Instagram at CharlotteRH711. And also you can find our website, athletesabroad.se. And anybody you want to email, well, not the players, but myself or Kathleen, you can email us, Charlotte at athletesabroad.se.
Sweet. And you should definitely meet and follow both of them. I mean, generally, I really had a lot of joy, interviewing both you and Kathleen, and just how you two have really embody what I want not going to be about, just about the athlete and the people. And I think you two are killing the game right now. So props to you both.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad. And I mean, Kathleen, it's interesting, our stories and how we reconnected and have found this together, and now we're kind of working it together. But it's one of the reasons why I brought her on is because I have known her for so long, and I know that she's such a great human and that she has similar values. So it was kind of a no-brainer. And now, it's great talking to you and connecting with you as well. And always fun to talk to people who are passionate about sports and kind of want to help more athletes and get the word out there.
Sweet. And then I'm gonna say this now, we're gonna figure out maybe down the road, we're gonna do a magazine issue and about agents. And I think who got to take the cover then.
Oh, I'd love that. Thank you. That would be awesome.
But we're going to figure out, I got some issues I want to do down the road. I think one of them that'll be perfect, how they become an agent, the journey in itself. So
I love that. You don't even know really that it's a career path the way it is. And I think that a lot of times it has been dominated by males, especially there are very few females doing it. So I love that, especially female athletes can see that it's even an option, and hopefully there will be more to follow.
Dang, because of Charlotte Harris.
I don't know about that. Because of themselves,
They were inspired by hearing Charlotte's journey.
I would be honored if that were the case. That would be really cool.
Sweet. Well, Charlotte, it's been great. Love talking with you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yes, sounds good. Thanks for having me, and I'll look forward to listening to the interviews with our athletes, especially.
Yo, thanks for listening to this episode of the 9 Point Started With a Dream podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please comment, share, leave a review. We would love to hear your thoughts. You can find more athlete-driven content at 9point.com. Till the next episode, you're only one opportunity away. Peace.